Let's talk about a topic that most of us focus on at one point or another, and sometimes way too much. And yet, it's actually really important. So, what I'd like to do today is talk about how you can improve your relationship with money and find and do so in a way that's actually going to bring you a lot of ease, but also be really practical. So, let me give you a little picture of kind of my own connection with that. Back in my 20s, I was actually quite organized with my money. I was very sensible, responsible. I even put some aside for investment. I was intent on kind of doing the healthy things while also enjoying my life. I traveled, I explored different, experiences, and it felt good. Like it felt like that's how I wanted to be. Yet at the same time, looking back, I was being cautious to a point where it was creating a sense of restriction. And there's this sense of, I would never want to be in debt because, that's just a terrible thing and it'll be put me under stress. And so I was perhaps leaning a little too much into that sense of being good with it, responsible with it, being sensible, in a very conventional way. Of course, it served me. It was good in some ways to have that kind of health in my 20s and not have to stress and be able to feel relaxed and know and learn how to make choices for myself, right? Instead of course, when we're younger and our families do that for us. And then in my 30s, I had started my business already. I decided, I'm going to have to change. This is a different game altogether, and I got a little more relaxed. And some of it, like a lot of what I do kind of as an experiment, right? Because it's like, let's try this out. I've been in this all this time. What about if I do this? How is that going to improve my situation or change it in some other way that I need to learn from? And so I began to kind of relax a bit now that the new constraints showed up. It was a business, so cash flow is a big, is an important piece of that. And I did fairly well early on, I would say, in setting a picture of my business and what I felt I required for myself to continue and to be at a certain state where I could do the business but also continue my growth, which was really important to me, and my creative self-expression. So I was in a period of significant growth from the inside out, and so I loosened the grip a little bit. And as I said, that brought some challenges, but it also gave me it helped me learn things that I needed to learn. And then the next phase was when I shifted my business model and I made the choice to invest a lot over the next so many years in growth and learning, in joining programs, in hiring people. And it got to a point where it was stressful. Suddenly, I was not in the position I used to be in where everything felt easy and relaxed. And, even if I was making some very conscious choices, that I was still always within what felt like a safe structure. Now I had ventured out of that. And again, some of that was intentional. I knew that in order to really grow, like I needed to experiment and explore and take risks, new risks, right? Now, if somebody said, well, would you do the same when, if you were to look back? Well, I don't know, quite frankly, because that was what was coming for me to do. And yes, there's things I know now that I would have loved to have known before, or meaning that I would change certain things. But that's always in hindsight, right? If I'd known them, I would have done that back then. But I was in that place of kind of desiring to create more risk, experience more risk, because on some level I do believe that if we are never willing to risk more than is comfortable, we will always remain in a smaller box. So it's part of it, right? And I wanted to play that game, and it wasn't always fun, let me tell you that, right? It wasn't. There were times I really questioned it. But again, now when I look back at it, having moved through that, it allowed me to experience something that in some ways, I think I had to go through. And so after going through that, it allowed me to make a new decision and see things actually much more clearly. And so now I made this decision, and this was, I think about 2019. So I had a few kind of rougher years in particular. And in 2019, I decided, I I don't want to just look at my business and like be forcing it to produce to these higher levels and all of that. Like that just, it didn't feel fun, and it didn't actually feel like my strength to operate in that way. And I'm a big picture person, right? When I'm in that space of wholeness and visionary, like I can accomplish a lot and things can change when I operate in the way that I operate best. And so I thought, you know what? I've been guiding other people in this all these years, and somehow I lost the way for myself. And so let me use my guidance on me, and let's see what happens. And thank goodness that I did that, because what I did was I stepped back and I sat down and I noted everything in a very practical way so I could look at it, right? Some people I know fear this, and they're the kind who don't even want to open their envelopes to see bills and stuff. They go into that place of wanting to ignore it out of fear, and that's probably one of the most vulnerable positions you can put yourself in, to actually see something, even if it feels alarming to you, or creates an initial stress, is actually going to benefit you in the longer term in an example like this, right? So I sat down and I looked at the whole picture. I looked at what I wanted to organize. First of all, my money for a healthier state. I looked at what was my intention here. I wanted to feel health. I wanted to feel financial health, right? And I wanted to eliminate debt, including like mortgage, for example. And that wasn't like an instant requirement, but I was like, suddenly, you know what? I would love to have it paid way faster than is required. And I acknowledge what healthy felt to me, because everyone else has a different description, right? So given where I was, what would health look like to me? And so just making that, like sitting down with that clear intention in an organized fashion, I think already began to shift my state and shift my energy and where my attention was now going. And the very act of like sitting down and looking something in order to enhance it, improve it, make it better for whatever that means to you, you're already in that movement. That's where your attention is. So you've already started, right? So this is something that I encourage you to do. Like, where are you setting your intention? Because that is step number one. And from there, answers will reveal themselves. So, what happened? Sorry, I'm just looking at my notes. I remember. Oh yeah. So, I was looking at, what cash did I have available to me? What investments did I have? Assets. I looked at, what are liabilities like debt and mortgage, and, what are my fixed expenses every month? What are variable expenses? Are there things that I'm spending on that I could make a new choice about, right? And where is my income coming from? And are there avenues of income that I could have available? Like if I just opened that door, created that space, right? And so sitting down and kind of mapping it all out, it provided some sense of clarity. Yes, it provided a clarity, and it provided clarity, which really helps the nervous system relax. And it's like I moved into that space of, I am choosing this, right? I'm going to take charge of this in the whole picture. So by the way, when I was saying that I went through that stressful period, there was one particular thing that I was doing, probably at least a couple actually, but one of them was, as I said, like so focused on the business having to produce in order to then meet all these other desires and visions that I had. And in a way, like I'd entered these kind of businessy focused programs that were guiding me to do it that way, but they were taking me out of my bigger picture. And so that kind of created a tunnel vision, which for me was not really healthy. Maybe for some it actually is. Maybe it motivates them to be so laser focused. But in my case, that didn't happen. And I would say for a lot of people that's true, because I've witnessed it in the other participants, and sometimes in my clients as well, where they're trying to make something happen, and that's just creating a mountain of inner stress, and it's triggering their nervous system to feel in kind of fight or flight. And so all of that is actually making the whole thing much more challenging and much more difficult, and certainly not fun. So by taking charge and saying, this is the way I operate. I like the whole picture, right? Yes, the business is one obvious avenue for how the income can come, but there are a myriad of ways. There's so many avenues, right? And also I'd like these bigger things to also be accomplished, and they may happen in new ways, right? There's so many small things and sometimes big things that can come into our awareness when we open to them. And that's what I did at this time. And as I did that, like, new shifts began happening very quickly. It was just like little things, right? Sometimes maybe the bank would offer me something that I'd never had before, or money would show up in a way that I hadn't expected, and like this began to really snowball in a good way, to the point where, like, a few years later, and where I'm now is dramatically different, and in a place where there is much more ease and relaxation. Now I have new goals and new vision, but of course, like now, like having done what I did, when I actually felt like I was in a more difficult state, it gives me the confidence to say, hey, now I can rise to the next stage that I'd like to be at, which feels like it's the next best fit for me. And so clearing up, with the money that was coming in, that helped me deal, as I said, the debt, the mortgage, things like that. And suddenly I was getting credit lines that offers that, I didn't need them, but, it's always good to have something like that available. That's an example of creating an opening, an avenue that if you need to access it at some time for a short term, awesome, right now you have it. I found ways to lower my expenses. Some of them were just really tiny things, but I just call a company and maybe renegotiate what I had, or consider, am I actually using this or not? And so that was supportive. Gifts came in. Some opportunities came in that I hadn't expected, right? So what was going on was that I was giving energy and attention to this new self, to this new identity, to this new state of financial being that I now was choosing. And that is why the things began shifting. And my business didn't end up being the only or prime focus or avenue for this. It was like suddenly I allowed all the other doors to open. And that was quite the lesson, and made the whole thing actually quite exciting, and also relax the sense of pressure on the business, so that I could really look at, wait a second, what is a fit for me now? Maybe I have actually grown past where I was a few years ago. That's why those opportunities aren't working. It allowed me to really redefine what it is I was now going to be able to offer to people, because I had changed significantly, and my experiences had really built up to a point where I could offer something quite different. Let me see. So changing the energy by changing my relationship to money, moving into a state of wholeness, moving into the bigger picture, the visionary. What are all the things I'd like, not just this one area, right? So forget that tunnel vision and open up. That's what I did. So what can you do? you can first of all decide you aren't going to change your mind about where you are in the state you're in. Because remember, every wealthy person, every millionaire, multimillionaire, billionaire, they all started at some place where they did not know how things would happen for them, but they made a decision that it was important to them, right? And so making that decision, changing your mind about the state that you're in. So this is just, it's just like looking at a picture. This is my current state, but this is a picture that I'd really like. Like even doing that is an act of intention. So then sit down and get practical, because this isn't just about imagination. And I know there's a lot of things out there in the manifestation landscape which tell you to, touch money, smell money, do all of this kind of stuff to shift your connection with it. And I mean, I smile, but you know what, if it works for you, awesome, right? I'm not against it, like having some fun and having playful ways to engage yourself, because sometimes that will get us out of our rut in the way we're thinking. But what I want to do is insist that there is a practical aspect, that sitting down, seeing the whole picture, seeing what is variable, what is fixed, what would I like, what could I open up, is going to allow you to then open your eyes to new opportunities, whether it's with your bank, whether it's with your business, whether it's with certain income streams that maybe were small, but you realize, maybe just with a couple of tweaks, those can get larger. Maybe it's just the idea of now I'm available for more, even if you cannot see any other path. Because believe me, even the smallest path can sometimes turn into a river, right? So like a smallest stream of income can turn into a river. And because I have different interests and different things I've offered people over the years, I sometimes it was literally the smallest stream of income that ended up really what felt like saving me at that time and giving me this assuredness that about getting that cash flow and keeping moving forward. And as I said, things change in some dramatic ways that I hadn't expected, that I didn't know to expect. And so that just reminded me of kind of, that I love to use words like miracles and magic because they feel fun to me, right? Behind the scenes, it may all be really practical when you look at it, but it can feel like that. And that, that kind of fun energy shifts the way I think and also the way I engage with the world. And that's where I find some of the opportunities do come in. So sit down, look at everything, maybe rewind to the beginning of the video where I talked about the kind of things I was looking at and what I could change. Get your records organized so that if someone were to ask you, how much you have and how much you owe, whatever, you can say it. You don't have to be in a fog about it, right? Be clear for yourself. And then recognized when you do make a step forward, right? I don't know, maybe you cut your phone bill in half suddenly, right? And celebrate, enjoy that, but honor it. And don't go and say, oh, I saved that much, now I'm going to go out and spend it next moment. But, have some boundaries, start setting some boundaries on what things you will not spend on until you're in a certain position, right? So that you can begin to trust yourself, and not as a way to skimp to the point of really starving yourself, but to the point of I am standing up for myself. I am taking charge and I'm making new decisions. You can also write down a statement in present tense of who you are and what you've created. And I became a multimillionaire as I, eliminated my debt and opened new income streams, right? It could be something simple as that, but make it your own, right? What speaks to you? And it may not be, that could be my first 6 figures. It could be anything, right? Because this will work at all levels. So make that statement. Look at what you have in front of you. Make some commitments on what you can do now and follow through. Start checking in every month with where you're at, just like a little date with money, a little date with your financial situation, your current experience, right? So that you do stay on track and that you do recognize where the wins are. And if some things change in a positive way, that's going to give you much more energy and enthusiasm to keep going. Then pause. Pause after you've done these more practical things and you've created that statement, and imagine that it's already happened, right? I was able to do that with one of my biggest things. It was like I just suddenly felt into it and I imagined it done. And honestly, I had never thought about it before, but just the idea of it made me so happy. I think my whole energy shifted, and it was amazing how all that actually started to come in at some point. So we don't have to know the how. I didn't create a plan for these things. I just said, I am setting my intention and then I'm going to do the work. I'm going to be practical about it. I'm going to recognize what I can do. I'm not going to create some panic situation, as I said, starve myself of things in order to do this. Because the point was, I wanted to get out of that kind of tunnel vision and the kind of energy I felt that others tend to promote, because it wasn't working for me and it was creating the stress, which was perpetuating a difficult experience instead of a real change, right? So while you're doing this, you're choosing a new identity. Because as I said, I've had different identities over the years, right? I started in my 20s in that very responsible and organized manner, and I really liked it, and I reminded myself that I had done that once and I could do it again. But now I also had taken different risks, and I could kind of open to that, and I could set bolder goals and visions. And I had also done things in my business, like at one point more than doubled and once tripled my prices, because I had enough experience to be able to do that confidently. And I was at this stage where I wanted to offer a quality of service that I think is incredibly special and actually creates the kind of change many wish for in a short amount of time. And so I was able to do these things. As always, as I said, experimenting. And now I was bringing this all together so it can form, and as I said, go to my next level, right? So you're choosing a new identity and then you're living into it. It's not the other way around. Most often we're looking for the evidence outside of us, right? Oh, when we're going to get that raise? When are we going to get a whole bunch of new contracts coming in? When are our investments going to, skyrocket suddenly? And when they do, then I get to be that person. That's not the way it works. We actually decide who we are first, and then we get to play into that and live it and create it. So once you're doing this in the systematic manner, and as I said, then just spending kind of a date with it every month, and also being one thing that I remember guidance I received was, instead of, for example, fretting about this kind of stuff when you're in a difficult situation every day, have maybe a couple of times each month when, this is when the bills will go out, and this is when you organize or you sit down and you check things out, so that in those moments you can focus on it, give your attention to it. But the rest of the month you can relax, because there's nothing, you don't have to be fretting about it, right? So that kind of gave me a certain spaciousness to relax most of the time. And then when focus was needed, I could give that focus, right? And over time, as I said, that just relaxed to the point I remember thinking, wow, I don't even have to look at this anymore, right? It was almost like I was the habit was to, oh no, I better look, I better check, did I do this, did I do that? And it was already done. It was now already done, because I had also automated lots of things that made things really simple and easy. So I hope that has given you some input, guidance, and inspiration that you can change your experience. You can change your relationship with money. It's always variable. It's just simply where you're going to put your attention and focus. And yes, we all go through hard times. Honestly, I think anybody who's going to be, live an exciting life and desires that, where they do take risks, they are creative, they want their full expression out in the world, they're going to hit those ups and downs at times until they are able to establish something where they are supported more regularly, whether it's through investment or different ways that can be organized. So I'm definitely not a financial guru or expert at all. These are just my experiences I'm sharing with you. But it's a place to start, because once you do that, then yes, you may go to a couple of experts, right? Where can I get the kind of guidance that I really need and the support? So whatever you do, start it. We're coming into a new year. It's a fabulous time to make a new statement, to create that new identity, and to have it already in these last couple of days, right? Like, choose it. That's what we're doing. We're choosing it. And from that, as I said, we're living into it. And then guess what? You can actually continue and enjoy what life has to offer, and you can expand and expand as per your calling, what is actually true for you.